Madison Vale's 25th birthday was 3 days away, and she was spending the Friday night before it standing in mud. At least, that was how she described it. "This is disgusting." Her father ignored her. Madison stared through the tinted window of the Blacktown car as it rolled toward the carnival entrance. Beyond the glass, a Ferris wheel turned against the darkening sky. Strings of yellow bulbs stretched between tents. Children ran past carrying enormous clouds of cotton candy. Somewhere nearby, an announcer shouted about a game involving plastic rings and bottles. Madison sighed dramatically. "Dad, seriously?" Arthur Vale finally looked at his daughter. At 78, Arthur had the kind of face people recognized even when they couldn't immediately remember why. For 18 years, he had represented their state in the United States Senate. Before politics, he'd made a fortune in hotels, commercial real estate, and restaurants. His daughter had inherited the fortune. She had not inherited his patience. "It's a carnival," Arthur said. "I can see that." "You used to like carnivals." "When I was 8. Arthur looked back out the window. Madison adjusted her designer jacket. She had spent more on it than most of the people outside probably earned in a month. Her birthday plans were supposed to begin tonight. Cocktails at a rooftop bar, dinner at one of the most expensive restaurants in the city, then a weekend in Manhattan with 6 friends. Instead, her father had mysteriously insisted that she spend several hours with him. At a carnival. The driver opened Arthur's door. Madison didn't move. "Madison, I'll wait in the car." "No." She stared at him. Arthur stared back. There were moments when Madison remembered that before he became the elderly man who complained about her credit card statements, her father had spent decades staring down CEOs, governors, and senators. She climbed out. Within 20 minutes, Madison had criticized the parking, the music, the smell, the people, the rides, and the food. Arthur bought a sausage with peppers and onions. Madison stared at it. "You're actually eating that?" "Yes." "That thing probably has 17 diseases." "It has onions." "Same thing." Arthur continued eating. They passed a stand selling fried dough. Madison bought some, took one bite, and threw the rest away. "Terrible." "You've said that about everything here." "Because everything here is terrible." Arthur stopped. Madison kept walking for several steps before realizing he wasn't beside her anymore. "Dad?" Arthur wasn't looking at her. He was staring across the midway. Between a shooting gallery and an old carousel stood a narrow purple tent. Madison almost missed it. There were no flashing LED signs. No teenagers standing outside collecting tickets. Only a wooden sign. "Fortunes told." Arthur's expression changed. "Dad?" He walked toward it. "Oh, absolutely not," Arthur continued. "Dad!" He pulled aside the curtain. Madison followed because standing alone outside somehow seemed worse. The noise of the carnival disappeared almost immediately. Inside, candles flickered along shelves covered with old books, bottles, and cards. Heavy fabric muffled everything beyond the tent until even the Ferris wheel seemed miles away. A woman sat behind a small table. She looked older than Madison had expected, although Madison couldn't decide how old. 50? 70? Maybe older. Her eyes were what bothered Madison. They seemed amused before anyone had said anything. Arthur sat. Madison remained standing. "Sit," Arthur said. "I don't want my fortune told." "Humor me." Arthur removed a $20 bill from his wallet and placed it on the table. The fortune teller didn't touch it. Instead, she looked at Madison. "Your hand." Madison laughed. The woman waited. "This is ridiculous." "Then you have nothing to fear." That irritated Madison enough to make her sit. She slapped her hand onto the table. "There, tell me I'm going to marry a billionaire." The fortune teller gently turned Madison's palm upward. For several seconds, she said nothing. Her expression changed. The amusement disappeared. "You have been given much." Madison rolled her eyes. "Wow, incredible." "Madison," Arthur warned. The woman continued tracing one of the lines in Madison's palm. Money, beauty, health, opportunity, people who catch you whenever you fall. Madison pulled slightly against the woman's hand. The fortune teller didn't release it. And yet you mistake receiving help for deserving obedience. Madison stopped smiling. What does that mean? You believe needing someone makes them weak. I don't believe anything like that. The fortune teller looked directly into her eyes. You do. Madison yanked her hand away. Okay, we're finished. The woman leaned back. No. Madison froze. The fortune teller spoke quietly. You will not marry the man you're waiting for. Madison laughed nervously. What man? You will not become the woman you imagine yourself becoming. Good to know. You will not go where you intend to go. Madison stood. And you will continue going nowhere until your attitude changes. Madison's face reddened. You don't know anything about me. I know enough. You're sitting in a tent telling fortunes for $20. Arthur stood. Madison. No, she wants to judge me? Fine. The fortune teller looked toward Arthur. For the first time, Madison noticed something strange. Her father looked frightened, not angry, frightened. Dad? Go wait outside. Gladly. Madison shoved through the curtain. Arthur remained behind. For perhaps 30 seconds, neither he nor the fortune teller spoke. Then Arthur said, I'm sorry. The woman gathered her cards. You should be. Arthur placed another 20 on the table. She pushed both bills back toward him. I don't want your money, Senator. Arthur's face went pale. He hadn't introduced himself. The fortune teller smiled. You've been here before. Arthur stared at her. No, not yet. Something cold traveled through him. Outside, Madison shouted for him. Arthur turned toward the curtain. Behind him, the fortune teller whispered something. He didn't understand the words, but every candle in the tent went out simultaneously. Madison was furious for the rest of the evening. Arthur decided dinner might improve things. It didn't. They went to Maison Laurent, a restaurant where reservations normally required weeks of notice. Arthur needed only his name. The maitre d' personally escorted them to a quiet table. Madison ordered champagne before opening the menu, then a cocktail, then wine. Arthur ordered steak, potatoes, and a scotch. One scotch. Madison ordered oysters and barely touched them. You embarrassed me tonight, she said. Arthur cut his steak. You embarrassed yourself. She insulted me. She told you something you didn't want to hear. She's a carnival fortune teller. Yes. So why are you defending her? Arthur didn't answer. Madison lifted her glass. I have an actual life. I have plans. I'm going to New York Sunday. Vanessa already booked. She stopped. Arthur looked up. Madison blinked. Booked. What? She moved her hand impatiently. The thing. Hotel? Yes. She laughed. Wow, too much champagne. Arthur watched her. Madison continued. We booked this amazing hotel and then we're going to that restaurant where the chef does the... She stopped again. Her fingers snapped. She couldn't find the word. Madison? Stop looking at me like that. Like what? Like I'm... She stopped. Her smile disappeared. Arthur put down his fork. Like you're what? Madison opened her mouth. Nothing came. For perhaps 3 seconds she simply stared at him. Then the word returned. Drunk. She laughed too loudly. I'm drunk. You've had 3 drinks. Exactly. You've had 10 drinks before and delivered a 40-minute speech about yourself. Very funny. But Madison didn't order another. Arthur dropped her at her hotel shortly after midnight. Madison had maintained a suite there for nearly a year despite owning an apartment 15 minutes away. She said she liked room service. Arthur called it wasting money. At the elevator, he kissed her forehead. "Call me tomorrow." Madison rolled her eyes. "I'll be fine." Madison? What? He looked at her for a long moment. Nothing. She stepped into the elevator. The doors closed. Arthur stood alone in the lobby. For reasons he couldn't explain, he remembered the candles, all of them going dark together. Madison woke at 10:47 the next morning. Something was wrong. She knew that before she opened her eyes. Her mouth felt strange. Heavy. She reached for her phone and knocked it onto the floor. Shit. Except that wasn't what came out. The sound was slurred. Madison sat upright. Her heart began pounding and she tried again. Shit. Better, almost. She climbed from bed. Her left foot didn't land where she expected. She stumbled into the nightstand. 20 minutes later, she called her father. Arthur couldn't understand half of what she was saying. By noon, they were at a private medical office. Blood tests, neurological tests, scans, questions, and more tests, and nothing explained it. The doctor asked whether she'd taken drugs. Madison became furious. She tried to tell him exactly what she thought of that question. Halfway through the sentence, her words tangled together. She stopped. Everyone in the room became silent. Arthur reached for her hand. For once, Madison didn't pull away. Over the next week, things got worse. Slowly. That was the terrible part. Not waking up transformed. Not some dramatic bolt of lightning. A little less each morning. First speech and then coordination. Buttons became difficult. Then forks. Then stairs. She dropped her phone constantly. She spilled drinks. She couldn't reliably get dressed without becoming frustrated. Then came the accidents. Madison refused to discuss them. Arthur didn't push. Doctors continued searching for explanations. There were specialists, neurologists, therapists, more scans, more blood, more questions. Arthur offered money to anyone who might know something. Money had always opened doors for Arthur Vale. This time, every door led to another waiting room. Eventually, he hired a private nurse. Madison hated her. At first. Then she needed her. That frightened Madison more than anything. Within another week, the nurse was helping with meals. Helping her dress, helping her bathe, helping her use the bathroom. Eventually, Madison couldn't manage even the protective garments the doctors had recommended without assistance. She screamed the first time the nurse tried to help her. Then she cried. Then, as the days passed, she stopped having enough words to scream. Arthur watched his daughter disappearing behind increasingly simple sounds and gestures. The arrogance disappeared first, then the anger, then almost everything else. 3 weeks after the carnival, Madison was admitted to the hospital. Doctors still had no diagnosis. Her 25th birthday had come and gone. There had been no Manhattan trip, no rooftop party, no photographs, no champagne. Her friends sent flowers. Most stopped visiting. One rainy afternoon, Madison lay watching television. Her nurse had stepped into the hallway. Arthur was asleep in a chair. Madison stared blankly at the screen. A commercial appeared. Music, lights, children laughing. A Ferris wheel. Madison's eyes widened. Her fingers tightened around the blanket. The carnival. She remembered. Purple fabric, candles, a woman's eyes. You will continue going nowhere until your attitude changes. Madison sat upright. Her father woke. Madison? She pointed frantically at the television. The commercial ended. No, Arthur said. Madison pointed again. Madison, what is it? She tried to say the word. Nothing recognizable came out. But she knew. For the first time in weeks, she knew exactly what she needed to do. That night, Madison waited. At 2:13 in the morning, the hallway was empty. She climbed from bed. Standing took nearly a minute. Walking took longer. She fell once, then twice. She kept moving and she found clothes. She couldn't manage most of them. She didn't care. She found the elevator, then the lobby, then the street. By the time the hospital realized Madison Vale was missing, she was 6 blocks away. Police were called. Arthur was called and her nurse was called. Madison kept moving, sometimes walking, sometimes stumbling, once crawling back to her feet after falling on the sidewalk. She had almost no words, almost no coordination, almost nothing she once considered important. But she had one thing she hadn't possessed when she'd first entered that purple tent: a reason to keep going. Hours later, beneath carnival lights beginning to shut down for the night, Madison found the tent. Fortunes told. She pushed through the curtain. The fortune teller was waiting. Madison collapsed onto the chair. The woman said nothing. Madison tried to speak. Her mouth wouldn't cooperate. Again. Nothing. Again. A broken sound. The fortune teller watched. Madison began crying. She thought about every person she'd mocked, every employee she'd treated like furniture, every person she'd assumed was weak because they needed help. And she remembered the wheelchair user she'd humiliated. Madison forced her mouth to move. Once. Twice. Again. Finally, two damaged but recognizable words emerged. "I'm sorry." The fortune teller leaned forward. "For what?" Madison stared at her. That was when she understood. Saying the words wasn't enough. The curse wasn't asking her to apologize because she wanted her old life back. It was asking whether she understood why she needed to apologize. Madison closed her eyes, and for the first time in her life, she tried to answer without thinking about herself. The fortune teller smiled. Outside, the Ferris wheel stopped. Every light on it went dark. And somewhere deep inside Madison Vale, something began to change.